Welcome to episode 2 of a 3-part review, what to expect during a home inspection. With us today is Dave Schaum of Win Home Inspections. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing good today, Bob. Thanks for having me back again.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So, David, would you take a minute or so to for those who did not join us last week, to introduce yourself and then what you'll share with our audience today?
Sure. So I'm Dave Schaum from Win Home Inspection here in Kettering, Ohio. Actually, the greater Dayton area is where I service. And like you said, I'm a home inspector. I've been in business about 5 years. And I hope to be able to provide some information to you and your clients and your social networking group about some good things to know about home inspections.
Okay, great. So if you want to go ahead and share with us whatever you got on your plate today, we can get started. So you're on.
Absolutely. So last week, I talked a lot about how to find a good home inspector. Tapping into friends and family, using your realtor, some real good tips on how to find a good, reliable, reputable home inspector. So this week, what I want to talk about is, the importance of knowing what is included and what's not included in your home inspection, because it's not everything. A lot of people think that a home inspection is going to find every possible thing wrong with your home or your property and whatnot. And the inspection is not designed to do that. It's designed to catch major issues, and it's designed to catch those kinds of things that people want to know as they're proceeding with their purchase. So I want to go over some of those items for the audience out there so that they know what to expect as for their home inspection. So first of all, what's included? The major home systems, things like the structure, the foundation, the exterior envelope and siding and roof. Detached garages are included. The plumbing components, your supply and your drain lines, electrical system and those associated components, heating and air, interior components, just kind of everyday items like ceilings, walls, floors, doors, windows, those kinds of things a home inspector is checking. It's also checking for things like insulation and ventilation. So this is not an all-inclusive list. It's just kind of a general idea. Think of the major home systems that are going to be part of that home inspection. If you want to find out exactly what is part of that home inspection, you can either ask the inspector. Sometimes they'll provide you with a report, or even better yet, they will provide what's called the standards of practice that they comply with. So I comply with a national standard called the American Society of Home Inspectors, or ASHI Standards of Practice. Pretty soon here, the state is going to have their own standard of practice when home inspector licensing is enforced. So the state will actually have their own standard of practice. Coincidentally, it's almost identical to many other national agencies like ASHI or INTERNACHI. But again, the state probably has that standard of practice also. So if you're really interested in learning what is all part of that home inspection, you can look at that. It's pretty lengthy and it's pretty thorough as it's designed to be. Now you might ask, why isn't everything covered? Because I'm going to tell you about some things that aren't covered as part of the inspection here in a little bit. But it's important to know why it's not completely 100% covered everything. The reason is because they're trying to create a standard that both finds major issues, but also keeps the home inspection at an affordable, reasonable price. Okay, home inspectors are not, for example, dismantling a furnace and then reassembling it and looking for every little possible nitnoid defect. That would be an exhaustive kind of evaluation. Would you really want to pay an inspector 4 hours or whatever it would take to look at just say like a furnace? No. You want that inspector to do a basic check on it, a visual inspection, a functional check on it. And that is very true of all of the kinds of systems that the home inspector is doing. So it is a very basic, a functional check, a visual check that is not exhaustive. That's a very important term to understand, not exhaustive. That's actually used in many standards of practice to indicate that we're not dismantling items. We're not checking every possible mode and function of certain items, just like the main mode. So again, that's all to make sure that we catch major issues, but not make this an unusually or really expensive inspection. Okay, something else to realize about your inspector. Your inspector probably is not a specialist in all areas of the home. They might have some specific specialization in a few systems. A lot of home inspectors come from various backgrounds like heating and air or plumbing or even general contracting, and they might have very specialist kind of knowledge in some areas, but not all. You can expect that your inspector is going to know a little bit about a lot of things. So, enough to be able to assess their condition and their functionality and then provide you that information. This is also important because if your home inspector finds any issues with any of your systems, typically they're not going to be diagnosing unless it's something really obvious. Clearly something like a leaky drain, he's going to be able to tell you if the drain is leaking, it should be repaired. But there's other things. For example, maybe I try to operate a furnace with a thermostat and the thermos is just not, the furnace is just not turning on. So, I will maybe do a few troubleshooting things, but at some point I just have to say, hey, the system is not working. It needs to be checked out by a specialist. Again, to save time, save my clients money, I already know it's going to have to be checked out by a specialist. So let me now go over a few things that are not included in an inspection. Again, this is not an exhaustive list of items. Typically, your inspector is going to provide you a list in their agreement about what is not included. But some common ones that people might think are part of the inspection. Firstly, cosmetic items. So cosmetic items are not reported on in an inspection. I personally might make some, maybe like a comment about a home that would have a lot of cosmetic issues. But again, the time involved in documenting, perhaps sometimes even hundreds of cosmetic issues in a home would be not worth the time and the money that you're spending on a home inspector. Another common misperception is that your home inspector is a code inspector. The home inspector is not inspecting for codes or compliance with codes and electrical and plumbing standards. The reason is because more than likely your home doesn't comply with current codes and building standards because it was built prior to those codes being put in place. So they are grandfathered, so to speak. So my house, I live in a home that was built in 1927. There's all kinds of things in this home that don't comply with current codes. So it doesn't need to comply with current codes. So that's why the home inspectors are not code inspectors. If you wanted an assessment of whether certain systems complied with codes, that is the job actually for a local building inspector, like a permit inspector. Again, the home inspector is not doing that. Some other things. So these things are not included with the main home inspection, but are sometimes included as an ancillary inspection. So an assessment for wood destroying insects, mold, environmental hazards like lead or asbestos or radon. These are not all part of the main home inspection, but you might be able to add these on as an ancillary inspection. Other things like pools and spas, that also might be an ancillary inspection that is not included as part of the main. And finally, things like detached structures, detached decks, detached barns and sheds. Now, a detached garage, as I said earlier, is part of the inspection. But if there are several other detached structures, those typically would incur an extra fee. Some other things to realize, and this is verbiage that you will often see in standards of practice and home inspectors' agreements, is they will emphasize that the home inspection is a visual and non-invasive and not exhaustive inspection. And I just like to sum up by saying that it is all done to be able to hopefully catch major issues in the home. It's designed to capture major issues in the home at a reasonable price by someone who is kind of a general practitioner. So I hope that gives you a good idea of what's included in the home inspection and helps you out with preparing for your inspection.
Okay, thanks, Dave. I have a couple of questions. You mentioned earlier about the standards of practice for ASHI, ASHA, American Society for Home Inspectors.
Yes.
Where would one find that voluminous document you were talking about?
Well, not that voluminous. It's probably maybe 8 or 9 pages. It's yeah. So it's it's not a dictionary or something like that. So it's not that long of a read. I personally have a hyperlink to that. When I send out my inspection agreement to my clients, there's actually a link to the standards of practice that I comply with. And I think most home inspectors are going to do the same thing, is provide a link or something else to reference that. The easiest way to find it is just Google ASHI, ASHI, standards of practice, and you can see the whole list of things that are part of the inspection.
Okay, great. One other comment or observation. One of the things that one of the code issues are basically you're kind of looking for safety hazards too when you're doing your inspections, I believe. And one of those is the polarity of an outlet. I believe. Do you still check for that, or does anybody check for polarities?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. So good question. You know, when I'm doing the electrical system evaluation, it's going to involve checking each of the outlets in the home that are accessible. That's
Okay.
a thing to remember too. But yeah, I'll check all the outlets to make sure they're wired correctly. And if there's any wiring issues in terms of miswired or incorrectly wired, then that's something the home inspector is going to report on to take corrective action. Some of these things are minor. An ungrounded outlet not being used by an out appliance that needs a ground, probably not that big of a deal. But a reverse polarity outlet could be a potential safety hazard. There's an electrocution risk there with a reverse polarity outlet. So definitely electrical issues can have safety issues that are part of that.
And you mentioned one other thing about grounded outlets, three-prong. It's been my experience that there are times when a homeowner, because they have a three-prong plug that needs to go into a two-prong outlet, rather than they'll buy, rather than have an electrician change that out, they'll just buy a three-prong outlet and install it, which is a very simple process, but they don't ground it,
That's
which
right.
could be a real problem, I think.
It's a real common defect. Your home inspector should point that out to you and should go into details about what the risk is when you have an outlet is wired up incorrectly like that, what the risks are, and also what are some potential corrective actions.
Okay, great. All right, most interesting, David, as usual. You're a wealth and depth of knowledge that I have appreciated over the years. And can you give us a minute here to give us a minute and tell us what you're thinking about? Oh, you're going to be able to join us next week, right?
Definitely.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, give us an idea about what you're going to talk about.
Yep, a little preview of next week. So you've had your inspection done, you have all of your results. Now, what do you do with those results? So that's what I'm going to talk about next week, is my advice for how you tackle that laundry list of items that your home inspector gives you.
Okay, great. I'm looking forward to that too, David.
Okay.
So,
Thanks again, Bob.
okay, so how would someone get in touch with you if they have a question?
Sure. Yep. My phone number, 937-469-8528. And again, my name is Dave Shaw from Win Home Inspection. My email address, hopefully you're going to list all this stuff.
Yes.
DSCHALM@WINI.com. Or just Google Win Home Inspection Kettering. You'll find my website where all my contact information or even the ability to request an inspection is all there on the website.
Okay. Thanks again, David, for joining us today. And I'm looking forward to next week. And thanks to all of you for joining us also. And this is Bob Wiggum from RE/MAX Ultimate, signing off until this time next week. See you later.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you.